Welcome to another Recovery Monday. I cannot believe it's Monday already. We didn't have a live stream last week, but I feel like we literally just did this. So I know we didn't. I know it's been 2 weeks, but time super flies by. So we're back again. And today we're going to talk a little bit about the concept of healing. And the question is, do I have to heal in air quotes? And I'm not minimizing healing. Don't at me here, but do I have to heal in order to recover? So just let me know that everything is okay. Let me put the chat overlay up so you guys can talk to each other and I can see what's going on and you can see what's going on. Some of my favorite parts of the Recovery Monday live streams is you guys talking to each other in the comments, which I really dig. I have a heater on in my office because it's actually cold in here. If you hear that background hum, just somebody let me know. Why can't I quit you, says Becky. Don't quit me, because then there'd be like nobody from Twitch, or maybe there'd be one person left from Twitch. Anyway, can see you can't hear me. Why can we not hear me? I don't hear it. All right, let's stick with it here. Hang on. No. Audio. It is set for Rodecaster. What is wrong? Please hold. How about now? Audio back or no? Can see and hear you. Excellent. Okay. Perfect. So I think it was just a setting on my Mac. Anyway, sorry for the completely silent first minute or so. I can hear, I can see you. Great. Very good. Thank you so much. So anyway, how is everybody doing today? We have about 32 people. It should be a bigger crowd. A bunch of people said that they were going to pop in today, but that's fine. So whenever they arrive, it's pretty informal. Remember that these always stay, the replays stay on my YouTube channel forever. So you can always pop back in and see, rewatch if you want, or if you missed the beginning, that's totally fine. So today we're going to talk about the idea of healing as part of the recovery process. And full disclosure, I will always own my stuff, right? So if you follow me on Instagram, yesterday morning, I got a little cheeky, using the slang of my British friends, got a little cheeky, and I posted a story pane where I essentially said, hey, if you are going to be in the healing business and you know nothing about anxiety disorders and you automatically want to make everybody dig for hidden pain, hidden trauma, and spiritual meaning in their anxiety, please do not roll into my comment section and try and sell your coaching services. Because I had somebody do that. Rolled into my comment section, and this happens quite often. Clearly a healer of some kind, like it seems to refer to himself as a shaman of some kind, and that's fine. That is totally fine. I am not dissing that, but in the concept, within the context of anxiety disorders, especially things like OCD, that stuff sort of doesn't have a place. So I was kind of, aggressive, although I did post the message to that person with a picture of a really cute puppy, which I thought was really hilarious, but that's just me. So anyway, that's how this whole thing came about. I don't get to be sort of cheeky and sarcastic and aggressive if I'm not also going to own the fact that I was that way and maybe be a little bit educational about it. So it bears talking about, right? A lot of people want to know about healing. I know a lot of people use the word healing by default. I really want to heal. And that's okay. If that's the way you conceptualize things, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not here to take away the word from you, but people ask, do I have to heal as part of the process of getting better? Do I have to heal to recover? And the answer is maybe. Like, I can't really answer the question because it depends on the context. And I think somebody who is just, let's take the mechanics of like panic disorder or the mechanics of OCD, for instance, and just break it down and be really dry about it. You learn these bad cognitive lessons and you start to react to your own body and you learn to be afraid of your own heartbeat. For example, I use that example all the time, but it is a reasonable example. Is that a thing that you need to heal from? Well, my assertion, and in fact, when I wrote The Anxious Truth, I even wrote that in the book, that I do not call anxiety an illness. I don't call it a disease. Now, some people don't like that. Some people get a little bit annoyed when I say that. They would prefer that it be an illness, and that's fine. You can say you have an illness if you want. But I don't see it that way because I see it through a cognitive lens, like a cognitive behavioral lens. Whereas other people might see almost all mental health conditions through a spiritual lens or through a lens of trauma, that there must be some pain. And we essentially, in many instances, will pathologize normal parts of human existence. So people sometimes have bad experiences. People do have panic attacks. Many people have panic attacks. As adults, many adults will experience one or more panic attacks in their lives. People do get anxious. We do get afraid. But sometimes some people will say, well, that all means that there's some sort of pain and something, some wound that must be healed. And they conceptualize almost every mental health problem as a pain problem that needs to be healed. So this is why you hear people say, well, you have to heal, you have to heal, you have to heal. So if you have learned and you interpret your own bodily sensations or your own thoughts as scary or dangerous, and they are scary and they seem dangerous, so those are real feelings, I get that. But if that's what's driving the problem, is there something that you have to heal in order to get better? And the answer to that would be, I don't think so necessarily, but there still might be things that in your life that you do need to heal from. Does that mean that healing is at the root of your recovery from panic disorder or agoraphobia or OCD or health anxiety? No, it doesn't mean that. But it means that for some people, and you might make the argument, many people, we all carry some sort of wound, we all carry some sort of pain. And does that need to be healed? Does that need to be addressed? Well, probably you could make the assertion that, yeah, we should probably all go on some sort of healing journey to some degree or another. Just that I don't know if I would connect it directly to recovery from an anxiety disorder, because I don't think it necessarily belongs there. And people with my sort of theoretical orientation would say the same thing. This is why there are some specialists who treat specifically OCD who are very, very vocal about that, because especially with OCD, things can get really harmful. So if you have somebody who's having recurring thoughts about, something, some taboo subject, or it's sexually off limits, or something that isn't acceptable, or something that makes them feel like they might do something that they don't want to do, and you force them to try to dig and dig and dig to find some sort of pain that is causing that, things can get dangerous for that person. It can drive them into a state where they feel like there is no hope. It could make them feel more despair than they already do. So sometimes this becomes a very heated debate. And my interpretation here is that, do you need to heal your pain to learn that a panic attack isn't going to kill you? I believe the answer is no. I think you can learn that lesson and still carry your pain. And many people will say that they did learn that lesson rationally and logically. They understand all that, but they're having a difficult time putting it into practice. Sometimes if you're carrying some old trauma or old abuses, it can get in the way of executing the recovery plan that I've talked about in the past. If you just feel sort of structurally or systemically unsafe because of the life that you've been unfortunately forced to live, or experiences that you've had thrust upon you, then those can be things that can really hinder your ability to intentionally do scary things in order to get better. So is healing required? Not automatically. So the point today is that I'm going to can't hear the heater. Okay, cool. Sorry, I just got that. So I think the point today is that we don't automatically have to put the word healing into recovery from an anxiety disorder, because I don't know if we necessarily have to automatically say that something is broken. Your body isn't broken. Your brain isn't broken. Your spirit isn't broken. You might feel broken, which I get, because you feel discouraged and you feel like you're trying to get your life back and you can't. Those are real feelings that we have to validate. Those are actual real interpretations that everybody goes through and we struggle, but it doesn't mean that you have some sort of illness or wound that you have to heal from. So I think I try to take healing out of the core of it. But if there is some healing in terms of past pain that has to happen in your life, well, it's never a bad idea to sort of look at those things. Everybody gets to pick their own path, though. So do you have to go down the road of digging through your past pain? No, some people choose to never, ever do that. And if that's a choice that you make, that's perfectly valid choice. Some people like to view every problem they have as somehow stemming from past pain that they must uncover. If you want to go down that path, you have every right to go down that path. I don't get to tell you not to do it. Nobody gets to tell you not to do that. However, I don't know if it's necessarily required, right? If you are, hey, Sean, good to see you again. If you are, kind of stuck right now with, you're dealing with the things that I am addressing all the time. If you have health anxiety, if you are crippled with panic attacks, if you're afraid to leave your house, if you have OCD, the subjects that we talk about here. Is that a healing problem? No, I don't believe it's a healing problem. We can get this sort of kind of drifts into the category of nervous system regulation. I know somebody's going to ask about that. Well, don't I have to learn how to regulate my nervous system? And even in that situation, I would assert, no, you do not. You have to teach your nervous system that it's okay to do what it's doing, but it's doing it at the wrong time. And surprisingly, when people tend to go down that road and they forget trying to regulate their nervous systems, well, when they start to learn those lessons and change their behaviors and change those cognitive patterns through experience, surprisingly, their nervous systems tend to start to regulate themselves. Like that just happens again and again and again. It's really hard to say then, well, my nervous system needs healing because it's dysregulated. Well, your nervous system is firing at times that you don't want it to. But using the word dysregulation and connecting it to somehow healing your nervous system, I think is a bit of an extreme interpretation. I realize that we could probably line up 50 therapists right now in the comments section who would be banging on the door to come on with me and tell me why I am wrong, especially if they are vested in sort of the trauma narrative and the whole body keeps the score thing. I'm not discounting that. I think that stuff is a reasonable explanation for why you react the way you do. But I think sometimes we put ourselves in a bit of a trap and we sell ourselves a little short when we insist that we must heal something that isn't necessarily broken. If there is some other broken stuff and it exists alongside your anxiety problem, well, there's nothing wrong with looking at that. And I would wish you well in doing that. And I would encourage you to do it because it's probably good work to do. And by the way, that work is as hard sometimes as the work we're talking about now. Like the mechanical work is really hard. It's difficult. It's counterintuitive. You have to go against your survival instinct. It's scary. But you know what else is sort of hard work? That confronting childhood abuse, confronting neglect, confronting abusive relationships, like working through those things, that's also really hard and scary. So if you have that work to do also, you have my respect for doing it because that is equally difficult, scary, and daunting work to do. If you don't do that work, can you never get better from your anxiety disorder? I know many people who have overcome the mechanical parts of the anxiety disorder and then gone on to do that other work, or have overcome the mechanical parts of the anxiety disorder and have chosen to not do that work and live what they feel are very productive and happy lives. So that is a very individual thing. Nobody can tell you that, like, unless you completely heal, you will never get better. I don't believe that's true. It depends on your circumstance. It depends on what you believe. It depends on what you want out of your life. It depends on what is important to you. But just the same way that I think, don't let me tell you that you should never do healing work. That would be so completely, oh, cool. We got a bot. Hang on. She wants to offer a promotion of my channel, my viewers, and they're so good at promoting that they have to spam a live to drum up business. Living Room F is so good at promotion that they actually have to come in and spam a live stream to get customers. That tells you everything you need to know. Anyway, just like you shouldn't let me tell you that you should never, ever do healing work. That would be so irresponsible and wrong of me to try to tell you. Don't let somebody insist to you that everything has to be a healing problem. That's equally irresponsible and equally not okay. I should not be jamming my theoretical orientation into every aspect of your lives, nor should somebody be jamming their theoretical orientation into every aspect of your lives. That's not fair. That's just not cool. So that's my take on the healing thing. So, let's go to comments really quick. I don't have a lot to say on that, but since I made a comment about it yesterday, I wanted to address it because it is a reasonable thing. And I do get it. Many people have asked the question, and it's a reasonable question to ask. The only reason why I got so aggressive about it on Instagram yesterday and a little bit snarky, and I think a little bit sarcastic and funny about it, is because there was somebody with a vested interest who is literally trying to drum up business for their healing business. And that's not cool. That's not cool at all. So let's look into the comment section already and let's see what we got. And let's see here. Not a lot of comments today, I see, but that's all right. If you guys have questions, throw them out there. I can hear nothing is wrong. You're booking content. You're welcome, Nino. I'm glad it's helping. In practice, says Becky, in practicing, a lot of stuff I just put away came up naturally. Ooh, let me put this on the screen. Becky, thank you for sharing. You're always so open and I appreciate that. So Becky says, in practicing, a lot of stuff I just put away came up naturally, and the job was to feel that. That's actually pretty common. That's actually pretty damn common, to be honest with you. So a lot of people will say, ooh, stuff came up that I didn't even know was going to come up. That can happen. Like, so even though we're talking about very sort of, I don't know, mechanical stuff, if you will, I know people joke about, in mental health, people joke about people like me, people that sound like me, we're the engineers, we're the mechanics. But even in doing that work, you could be damn sure that some other stuff is going to happen. There's emotional things, memories come up, issues come up, pain comes up. So sometimes I like to think of ways where the the work that we talk about doing, where you learn that you can handle things like fear and uncertainty and vulnerability and panic even, also teaches us that we can handle pain, we can handle bad memories, we can handle regret. It's not all the same. There are varying degrees there, and some is much harder to handle than others. There's no doubt about that. But sometimes I like to think of the process that we talk about as putting out the fire. Like if you are on fire, and if you have if you have 10 problems and one of them is that you are on fire, then you kind of should put out the fire first, and then you could probably go and tackle those other 9 problems. That was one of the, somebody once told me that, and that has stuck with me for a long time. It was also an emergency room nurse who said, "Hey, if somebody comes into the ER and they're bleeding, the very first thing we have to do is stop the bleeding." So I kind of look at the stuff that we talk about here in many ways as stopping the bleeding. It's really hard for somebody to deal with things like trauma resolution if they are terrified of their own bodies and thoughts. So sometimes you do one and then the other. Sometimes you do the other and then the other. Sometimes you do them at the same time. It's nobody can tell you what the right ways to do it. So very good, Becky. Thank you for sharing. Let's see. I'll put Viola up on the screen. Hello, Viola. Good to see you. I remember when my anxiety went into disordered anxiety and I went to a therapist who tried to dig into my past. It wasn't helpful, but I think it may be helpful now that I'm better. That follows right along with what Becky just said, to be honest with you. And Viola, that's again a very common thing to find out. Like, oh, I feel so much more capable now. I feel like I can stand up on my own. I don't feel like I crumble at the slightest sense of adversity in my body or mind. Now I can maybe start to do some of that work. So in that situation, I would say that that therapist who just insisted that you had to dig and dig and dig and dig and dig is doing what they thought was right. I would like to give that person the benefit of the doubt. And in many instances, even a therapist who has heard that, like, no, you don't dig to fix OCD, just can't personally get on board with that, which I guess I can understand. But then sometimes there's personal views come into that. And it's like, we're not supposed to do it that way, but we're also sort of given permission to pick the modalities that sort of resonate with us. So we're told, and I've talked about this, I'm not giving away secrets here, therapy secrets, but when we're being trained, we're told that, like, you're supposed to practice evidence-based, always evidence-based, but you're also allowed to pick modalities that just sort of resonate with you. So I get why that person was telling Viola that. And you could see that maybe they weren't entirely wrong, but it would be wrong to insist that that was the absolute way to do it. Just like I would not insist that don't ever dig for anything. You can only do exposures, only do floating and accepting. That would be crazy. I would never say that. That would be insane. So why do other people insist that that's the way to do it? There's another podcaster, whatever, YouTube person. I'm not going to say the name, but I've been in conflict with that person because their feeling is, stop trying to cope. You got to heal. So his insistence is that coping skills and all that stuff. And there's a match there because I say you don't want coping skills either, but no. This exposure thing is not where it's at. You should be healing. You must heal. This is all based on healing. Now, maybe for that person or people like that, that was their personal experience. I get that. And maybe if I was healing from trauma, I might have a little bit more of an affinity for the trauma narrative also. But the fact of the matter is, if we take our own personal experience out of it, because I have to take my personal experience out of it to some degree, then you look at what just goes on in the real world, in therapy rooms all over the world, we see that even though I might want everything to be a shamanistic healing problem, it's simply not. So hopefully that helps. I would love it if everything was a cognitive behavioral, just do exposures problem, but it's not. It's just not. If you had a terrible relationship with your dad and he treated you very poorly, that has nothing to do with floating, accepting, and exposure. There are overlapping concepts in healing, but it would be ludicrous for me to insist that you had to do this thing to handle that problem. So let's see. Good to see you again, Sean. Hope everything is going okay. Let's see what Bethany has to say. Okay, this is good too. That healing is an ideology that not everyone agrees with. Even people with trauma don't necessarily agree on the whole healing thing. And sometimes there are semantics there too. The word healing has multiple multiple meanings for sure. We attach the word healing to pain and trauma or abuse, emotions. That's valid. That's a real use of the word. That counts. But we also attach healing to the idea that something is broken or there's a wound or there's an illness. So I definitely don't think that anything is broken when we're talking about things like panic disorder or health anxiety. Nothing is broken, just that we're not working the way we should be working given context. So, but on the other side, if you want to go back to the emotional and pain stuff, then the word healing does apply. So it's tough, man. It's really tough. There's no set answer to this. I keep coming back to that. Right? There's no set answer. So let's see. Hello, Lisa. I can actually see your name. I wonder if that, you know what? I see everybody's name. I wonder if Restream has changed. Is anybody in the Facebook group? Just give me a wave if you're watching in the Facebook group, because suddenly I can see Lisa's name when I used to not be able to see it. Who knows? Broken and disordered aren't the same thing. Healing and learning aren't the same thing. They can overlap a bit, but they aren't the same thing. A dog who's afraid of the stairs is not broken. This is good. I understand the simplification. And I see that you're trying to catch it. We're certainly not dogs. I get it. But in the same vein, you're right. It's really that's what I'm looking for. Sometimes the mental health community, especially online, gets so caught up in the idea of soothing and the idea of validating. And again, I'm cynical about this, but I think sometimes soothing and validating is really good online because it's the thing that leads to clicks and follows and likes and all of those things. Right. So it's that. So if I wanted to be much larger than I am on Instagram, I would talk a whole lot more about how hard anxiety is. And I would try to validate that it's impossible and we need more awareness and nobody understands us. I would just talk about that all day. So unfortunately, that narrative is more popular in terms of algorithmically friendly to social media algorithms, but it doesn't mean that it's the only narrative. And I know I keep coming back to the idea that there's no black and white. It sucks. Let's see. What does Leola? Don't think you can get an anxiety disorder without first tackling. I'm guessing that would be a 2 point. Don't think you can't. Don't think you can. And again, so in Viola's world, maybe you feel like you can't. Like, hey, Nat, good to see you. My friend Natalie is here. Natalie is a therapist also here on Long Island, and we have known each other since predating the Anxious Truth Panic Station days. Hey, Nat, good to see you pop in. So in some people's eyes, no, I really have to heal my trauma in order to take care of my anxiety disorder. And if you think that, then yeah, the answer would be, yeah, totally. You should, then you could go down that road. You got to do that work too. Nothing wrong with that. So let's see here. Let me keep going. It's good. Always good comments. On the days when I feel really anxious, can't sleep off the couch. I'll throw this up here. I wish I could heal the talk to text feature on my damn phone, says GBG. Let's see. On days where I feel really anxious and I can't seem to get off the couch, what do I suggest doing? This sucks. And I always hate answering the question this way, but that's the day that you have to get off the couch. It's really hard because the nicer answer, or the answer most people want to hear, is take a self-care day. Just be kind to yourself. And you do always have to be kind to yourself. Always be kind to yourself. Never be mean to yourself. That's true. But that's the time when it's most important to get off the sofa. In the context of recovery from an anxiety disorder, on the day when you just can't seem to get off the couch, that's the day that it's most important to get off the couch. It doesn't mean you get off the couch and fly around the world. It doesn't mean you get off the couch and drive 600 miles away. It doesn't mean you get off the couch and paint your whole house, but it means you get off the couch and accomplish something that you think would be impossible to do, right? It's really important. So hope that helps, Lorena. And I know the struggle sucks. Let's keep going here. I just feel that it is individual based on each person. Yeah, 100%, right? 100%. That's what we were saying. There's no direct answer here. There's no black and white answer that applies in every situation. Is there healing involved? Sometimes there is. And if there is, you need to do that, you got to do that. Like, you have to do all the work. I've said it all the time. All the work has to get done, not just one or the other in many instances. Let's see here. Is it bad? That's a huge comment. Let me answer Billy really quickly here. A little off topic, but it's a question. Is it bad behavior to write down when I get an anxiety wave and try to keep track of times? That's not a thing that I would recommend. So Billy Garland is asking, is it a good idea to write down when I get anxious, like when I have a big spike or a panic attack, so I could try and figure out what caused it? If you are afraid of having a panic attack, then I would not advise you to try to track down by writing down your panic what caused it, because what generally caused it is that you're afraid to have a panic attack. So we're always in a conversation where the anxiety is the source of the anxiety. You're panicking about panicking. You're afraid to be afraid. You're anxious about being anxious. So the idea that you should try to track that so you can figure out what triggers your panic attacks. I would posit that if you're watching me, there's a good chance, and only somebody in person, a therapist, can tell you this, by the way. But there's a really good chance that the last panic attack is what triggered the next one. The last big anxiety spike is the trigger for the next one. So writing it down to try and decipher what did I think? That's very old school CBT. Like keep a thought record. What was I thinking when I panicked? Well, I was probably thinking, oh no, am I going to panic? So no, I wouldn't necessarily do that. So take the addiction away from them, move it over to soothing voice. Okay, I'll throw this up here. I mean, I don't, I got snarky yesterday. I don't want to get snarky today too much, but they take the addiction away from the anxiety and move it over to soothing voice. It's an easy trick to fall for. It could be. I mean, I get it. It is nice to be soothed. I get it. Everybody wants to be soothed. There's nothing wrong with it, but we have to be careful that it isn't the only thing we're doing. Let's see here. Hello, Stacy. I am very confused. I'm going to turn this heater off because now it's too warm. Hang on. There you go. Much better. It's getting hot in here. But I just heard a rim shot in the comments. Really, I am very confused with what I should be doing. I'm seeing everywhere to heal anxiety. I need to regulate my nervous system, so I'm spending a lot of time doing this. It's not working. Well, Stacy, that's. I'm going to do a podcast episode on either. I'm going to do it on mine, or we're going to do it in the new podcast that I've been talking about. That regulating the nervous system thing, I am not a fan. And I will give you here's the 30-second explanation in terms of my take on nervous system regulation as somehow a fix or a cure for an anxiety disorder. If you notice, let's take panic attacks, for instance, if you see that more people will have panic attacks in their adult life than won't have them. And when we see that 20 something million people, reasonable estimate in the United States alone, adults in the next 12 months will have at least one panic attack. And then we notice that only 2 or 3% of them will develop panic disorder. We start to see that while we don't like this, and I understand that we don't like it, being afraid, being triggered, even having panic attacks, having weird thoughts are just parts of being human. Like humans do those things. Human bodies do those things. We tend not to want them to do those things. We don't get to decide that they won't, though. So in many instances, the idea that you have to regulate a nervous system that was not designed to be regulated and isn't actually doing anything that even can be regulated, I think sends people on a lot of wild goose chase. Because when you have the bigger anxiety spike and the regulation tools don't work, you're in an even bigger tizzy. So again, if we look at people who stop trying to activate their vagus nerves, who stop trying to activate their parasympathetic nervous systems, if we look at people who stop trying to regulate their nervous systems and sort of take that cognitive behavioral approach that we talk about, it seems that their nervous systems magically begin to regulate themselves. How can you argue with that? It's really hard to argue with that. So I do get that it might seem like really, and this was way more than a 30-second answer, wasn't it? Why do I put time frames on my words? I'm always wrong. But while it might seem like good advice, I'm going to teach you how to regulate your nervous system. If you rub your neck, you'll activate your vagus nerve, and you try all these things and then you wind up like, well, it doesn't really work, or it worked once or twice, but if I get really anxious, then that doesn't work. I say we have to kind of stop doing that. Because if your body is doing what bodies normally do when they are afraid, is the problem your body, or is the problem that you are afraid of what your body is doing? And is that a nervous system regulation problem? I will posit that in most cases, it is not. It is not. And I think that in our community, the idea of nervous system regulation gets jammed and hammered and hammered and hammered, and sometimes it causes more problems than it solves. So in the end, there's more than one way to regulate a nervous system. I will also put that out there. How could it possibly be that tapping things, rubbing things, eating certain things, breathing certain ways that's the only way to regulate a human nervous system? Like it only exists internally. There's no interface with the outside world in your experience. That seems crazy. So we can, if you do want to go down the regulation road, there are a lot of ways to try and regulate a human being. a lot. So just saying. Okay, there was a rant. Let's see. Um, that's because you're doing it in hopes of going away. You actually have anxiety being focused on everyday living. I'm not sure I don't understand the conversation that's happening there, but this is true. Tony, what you're saying, you do have to let the anxiety be there and focus on everyday living. We have to be careful that we don't grossly oversimplify it, but that is generally a true statement. I've never had any trauma, but I had a major disorder. I became disordered after watching the movie Ghost Ship. Okay, so people here are talking about this Ghost Ship movie. I could see this. Um, I've never seen Ghost Ship. Red Flame is saying, wow, I'm never watching that. Um, the opening scene started a 20-year-old anxiety disorder. I'm totally pathetic. I kind of feel like I want to watch it now, but this sounds like a very interesting conversation. Um, I will put this up on the screen. Suede Dogs. That's a good screen name. That's a really good screen name. Suede Dogs. And why? Where does Suede Dogs come from? So the answer: are you cured? I don't mind being asked this question. This question is either two things. It is either somebody trying to catch me because I might have a panic attack now and then, so they will therefore say, "Well, see, you're bullshit. You're lying. You're a scammer because you have panic attacks." I don't think that's what this is because they recognize Suede Dogs. And dude, I don't think you're doing that. Am I cured? The definition of cured is where this starts to become a problem. I literally never think about anxiety. Which just sounds ridiculous. I'm literally doing a live stream. I've been talking for 30 minutes to 70 people or whatever in the room about anxiety, but I never think about my own anxiety. Never. I will experience anxious days. I can even have a panic attack a couple of times a year, maybe, but I literally never consider my own state of anxiety. It can exist. I can feel it. I can acknowledge it. I can work with it, but I am never concerned about my own anxiety, my own anxious state, or possible panic attack ever. Even after, and you can tell me that I'm lying here, but anybody who's in the room who has gotten to this level and the many, many people like me will corroborate this. If I have a panic attack today, it's maybe I'll have a panic attack in an hour. I don't know. It's possible. But when that panic attack is over and I feel shaky for a half hour or so, because that's just what bodies do after that, once that's all over, I am literally not thinking about panic anymore. I'm not worried that it will happen again. I'm not planning. I'm not trying to figure out what caused it. I'm not trying to stop it from happening. So is that cured? I never say cured because cured implies never anxious and never panicking, but I would call that recovered. And yes, I am. I am 100% recovered because nothing in my life is controlled or influenced in any way by a state of anxiety, fear, or panic. Nothing, zero. I live a life completely free of anxiety related restrictions. Doesn't mean I always make great decisions, but none of them are based on anxiety. I hope that helps. Um, let's see here. And again, in that situation, I hear that argument and you can disagree. It's totally fine. I actually don't need anybody to agree with me on that. I was asked, am I cured? I live a life that has literally no restrictions that are based on fear or anxiety. None. So you can say that I'm not cured, and that would be totally fine. You can say that if you want, but I don't know a better definition of cured. I can't think of a better definition. And if you want to say, well, you might have a panic attack, so that means you're not better. Okay. I just don't think it's that important. Yeah, panic attacks versus panic disorder. We've talked about that. Okay, so let's keep going. Um, let's see what Sue has to say here. My old counselor dug up all trauma from my past. That can happen. So now I'm forced to deal with that. I'm supposed to start EMDR next week. Hopefully that will help me process that quickly. Well, EMDR certainly holds some promise, and a lot of people like to use it in trauma recovery. And you know what? That can happen. Sometimes stuff comes up that we didn't want to come up. And let me address that really quickly. Sometimes there really is hidden pain. Like I'm not denying that. That is true. It's just the assertion that everybody has pain that is hidden and must be uncovered. That's where we run into a problem. It's that black and white thinking. But Sue, hang in there. I know that's not easy work. Let's see here. Everybody's telling me to watch this movie. I might have to do that. Let's see here. Yeah, EMDR is really very widespread used in trauma recovery these days. It's essentially a method that lets you sort of go through those re-experiencing circumstances while remaining sort of connected to the present, as opposed to being transported back to the experience. So It's got some stuff, but there's also some interesting data on EMDR that even when you take away the eye movement thing, that supposedly bilateral stimulation thing, it still works. So there's a lot of things we don't really know, and like how it works, we don't really know. But it seems to people seem to have good luck with it. So hang in there, Sue. I did a 4-hour exposure at a friend's yesterday, says Brian Murphy. The last hour more, I had tight throat and choking. I let it all happen, but then I had to leave. A few tears afterwards. I managed to stop after 10 minutes, feeling low. Okay. Well, it's pretty common. Hang in there, Billy. It's a big Brian. It's a big comment, so it'll cover the whole screen. But feeling low after the exposure, I presume that's common. Well, you're going to feel tired. It will definitely like tire you. There's no doubt about it. You might feel a little shaky because you're still in that point where you don't want it to happen again. But it sounds like you did a really good job, dude. So like, don't forget how well you did there, and try and take the experience forward with you. Like all the times in that 4 hours that you wanted to run, but you didn't for 4 hours, man. That's amazing. Like, give yourself a lot of credit for that. Pat yourself on the back. And it's okay to have your mood go up and down. After a negative experience, and there is some negativity in that for sure, you'll feel a little down. That's okay. Just try and can reconnect to the good part and build on that. It's okay. Good job, man. Really good job. Panic attract is how I met my wife. So good. So good. Let's see. What else do we have here? I think we're at the end of the comment section and we're only 36 minutes in. That's okay. That's okay. It wasn't a big long comment this day. Can you please help me out? Oh, Facebook user. That means you're in the Facebook group. I've been suffering with anxiety disorder for 20 years due to an abusive relationship. Okay. Well, let's throw that up on the screen. I'm very sorry. I can't see your name because you're in the group and Restream doesn't show me your name. And I'm very, very sorry that you're dealing with that. So in this situation where you could see like you were in an abusive relationship, I've been to many therapists, self-help. How do I start off on the path to recovery? This is a tough one because in this one, we know for sure that there are multiple things going on at the same time. So you have to kind of ask, what were those therapists asking you to do? Or what was their approach to this? What were you hoping to get out of that? This is a complicated topic. I wish I could tell you exactly this is what you do. But what I can tell you is that the common thread in both situations, you're welcome, Brian. Hang in there, buddy. You did a good job. Um, the common thread here in both of these situations, I have an anxiety disorder and I come from an abusive background, is that even in the abusive background, you learn that those memories can be memories and they don't have to be sort of here and now re-experiencing or flashbacks into those things. And because you were unsafe then doesn't mean you are now. And you do that by kind of working through those bad memories and seeing like, oh, I feel really unsafe, but oh, look, I learned that I really am. So there actually are overlaps there, just that you have to be careful on how you do it. And there are nuances and it really depends on your specific situation. So what I can tell you is that there is a way to get better. It's just really hard to tell you, do this, here's step 1, 2, 3, 4. It's really hard to say. In the end, all of it does come down to the idea that you have to sort of risk that theory that you're not safe because your body feels like something is wrong with it when it's never been. So you risk it to learn that you've been wrong about that. And the same thing with sort of reliving some of those abusive memories. I'm very sorry that you had to live through that. That is not cool. Hang in there. Hang in there. Let's see. We'll throw this up real quick here. Did I miss a question somewhere? Carol, did I miss a question? I'm sorry. I haven't seen everything in the comments. I'll throw this one up really quickly. And then Carol, if I missed a question, throw it in there. I'll scroll up too. Is there a buddy group in New York City where people can meet up to do exposure therapy together? Well, in this situation, the answer to that is don't know. And there's a double-edged sword in exposure buddies, right? So even trained therapists are often reluctant to do exposures, right? Often reluctant to do exposures. So I think there's a reason for that. Because they get a little worried that they're going to damage their clients, or they're worried that they're going to traumatize or re-traumatize. So they understand the theory behind it. They do understand that it's useful, but they worry because on a personal level, it seems distasteful to them. Right. So if therapists get nervous about that, right. And people who really kind of specialize in this thing that I'm talking about are a little bit of a special breed, because we will push you into those uncomfortable situations, knowing that it is actually safe for you to do that. When you buddy up with somebody and you're not working under supervision, sometimes that can backfire. Like exposure buddies sometimes becomes reassurance buddies. They sometimes become, soothing buddies. They sometimes become it's okay buddies. So it's always great to have people to share the struggle with, but it doesn't always work out so great because it's counterintuitive in a lot of ways. I hope that helps you at least conceptualize that. So if there is a comment that I missed, this is the third week. Okay. I'm sorry, I did not see that. I did not I did not see that, Carol. Do I need to be healed from MS to recover from anxiety? Um, oh, I see why. So here's a bit of a hint, Carol, for you or for everybody else. In the beginning of these live streams, I'm generally not watching, right? So the format we always follow is I'm going to ramble at you guys for 12 or 15 minutes, and then I'm going to go into the comments. So if you jump into the stream and immediately throw a question out, there's a really good chance I might not see it because I'm in the middle of sort of the lecture part of it. But the answer to, and good job, thank you for repeating it. And thank you guys for pointing out that I missed Carol's question. Do I need to be healed from MS to recover from anxiety? I can't tell you that. Like, there is the fact that you have multiple sclerosis, which is absolutely 100% a challenging situation that will trigger anxiety. There's no doubt about it. But then there's the part where you are then afraid of the anxiety itself. That's the part that we care about, right? So is MS a stressful thing? Of course it is. Is MS going to cause you some worry, some anxiety, some uncertainty, feelings of vulnerability? Of course it will. But the part that we care about is the part where if you get anxious, even if it's because of your health challenge, you then also get afraid of the anxious state itself. That's the part we care about. So, do I have to heal from MS to get better, to recover from anxiety? Well, define recovery, right? Nobody here can teach you to never be anxious ever again, especially in your circumstance. But we can point at, and you can point at having a more productive or a less damaging relationship with that anxious state, which kind of doesn't have anything to do with the MS, which I know is it's a progressive disorder. It's a progressive disease. You're not going to heal from it. You can control it. I know there's a lot of good work being done in MS. And Carol, I don't know your specific circumstance, but you have to really look at what you're defining as recovery. So hopefully that helps. In the ideal world, you might still be anxious because of the health challenge that you're facing, which is real and legitimate, but you don't have to have that maladaptive relationship or response to the anxious state itself. That's really hard to say. And I would love, love, love to be able to give you a definitive answer, but I don't know your specifics. I certainly don't know the state of your MS, nor am I a physician, nor am I qualified to comment on MS. So hopefully that helps clarify it a little bit. So there you go. There was one other that I saw come in, something about aging. Where is it? Here we go. Michelle. Hello. Hello, Michelle. Aging brings along new panic anxiety symptoms. Okay, well, you're welcome, Carol. No problem. This is a really good comment, Michelle, because wow, I have to look over the comment. Brings new anxiety symptoms. The human body changes. Okay to feel scared and cry. That's true. Your unique disorder improve on its own time with help. Good. I love it. You're right. And sometimes that is true. Like as we age, things change a little bit. Like our bodies change, symptoms morph. That's why we don't play symptom whack-a-mole because they're going to change over time anyway. But thank you, Michelle. It was very kind and supportive comment. I appreciate you putting it out there. And Franklin says the idea of being cured can also fuel different kinds of obsessions. Yeah, that's 100% true. Sometimes that cure thing could be like, am I fixed now? Am I cured? I got to find the cure. So good comments. Very good. Very good. Very good. I'm doing exposure therapy. Where are we? This is the last one. I'm doing exposure therapy with showering, but every time I do this, I get chest tension, which is terrifying. That's why. So this is that flippant thing where sometimes I'm not so popular. That's correct. You are literally doing the showering, not to shower. You're doing it to trigger that uncomfortable feeling. So Charisse, one of the most important things you could do is stay connected to why you're doing the exposure. The shower is not the exposure. I know you think it is, but it's not the shower. It's what happens to you when you take the shower. So when it triggers that chest tension, that's actually what you want to happen. You're taking a shower to trigger the things that you're afraid of in the shower. You're not afraid of the shower. You're afraid of how you're going to feel in the shower. That's an important thing. And so remember that you want that sensation to be triggered because what you can do about it is to let it be triggered. And you have to learn. I know it seems risky because it seems dangerous to you, but like, I'm going to have to just let this be and finish my shower and get out of the shower and dry off and get dressed, even though I am terrified that something is wrong with my heart. I know that's a huge ask, but that is the concept behind it. What to do about it or overcome it. I know you're hoping I'm going to say, oh, here's how to stop it from happening, or this is the specific thing you do. but there is no such advice. And just always remember that the shower is meant to trigger the discomfort. And for anybody else that's doing any kind of exposure work, always remember that if you are triggered during an exposure, that's exactly why you do the exposure, to get triggered. I'm going to talk about that in a podcast episode very soon called, like, why would you not be triggered? Because it gets really, Josh Fletcher today talked about self-criticism. People often will declare failure because they get triggered in exposure, but we do the exposure to intentionally get triggered. So don't forget that. Anyway, all right, guys, this has been a good one. I appreciate all the comments, and I appreciate you guys being so nice to each other and supporting each other. And thank you, everybody, for rallying around Carol so that I got to actually see her question. It was really great of you guys. I so appreciate that. This will stay on my YouTube channel. As always, you can go back and rewatch it a million times. Everything is in a playlist called Recovery Monday. And yeah, that's it. If you have questions or comments, usually on Tuesdays and Fridays, I loop through YouTube for comments and stuff. So if you have questions, post them and I'll come back and try to answer them. I'm pretty sure we'll be back next week. At some point, Recovery Monday, depending on this new project that I'm involved with, might become an every other Monday thing. But for now, it's an every week thing. So I will see you guys next week. Thanks for coming by.